Absolutely. Okay, what's first on the agenda?
Big game Sunday.
Hope they are.
Yeah, no, 7 degrees below zero.
All right, everybody, thank you. This is the January 17th, 2019 meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals. All 5 members of the zoning board are present and accounted for. We do have a public hearing scheduled for this evening at 7:15. However, I'll note the time. It's 7:05 at this time. We do have a couple of agenda items that we just see how many of them we can tick off before the public hearing at 7:15 or so. So first order of business, let's go, if we can, let's review the minutes from our last meeting on December 6, 2018.
I read the minutes and I didn't see anything.
Okay, did anybody have any changes, comments, suggestions? I had a couple, again, as I always do, I apologize, a couple of nitpicks.
So last
know
time
me.
you didn't have anything, so.
Yeah, I know. I gotta prove to people that I'm actually reading these things, so you know how it is.
Yeah,
Let me look at it, actually. Here it is. Page 3 is the first one. The third line from the bottom.
Can I just Sure. What happened to page 4, 6, 8? What happened to all the even pages?
Oh, yeah, I think
You know, I thought,
the printout is just missing them.
and I thought I redid them.
Yeah.
Maybe
But I
So we
think,
got all the odd pages.
We've got, you know what it is? It's the
It's the printer,
copier
yeah.
downstairs. If you don't specify
yeah,
each time,
we all read it beforehand anyway, so
Yeah,
I think we're all set.
So as long as none of your things are on the even pages.
There is one, actually.
Oh, God.
All right, so page 3. 3 lines from the bottom. Right here, so where it says current zoning allowed 1 unit on 1 lot. What was actually discussed was current zoning allowed 1 habitable building on 1 lot, as opposed to 1 unit. It wasn't 1 unit, it was 1 habitable building. Okay? So that's the first thing. Next one is on page 5, another odd page. Let's see, I just wanted to specify, so it's the third full paragraph. It starts off with "Next, Andrew." And I just wanted to specify that since Mr. Phelan is an associate member of this board, I wanted to specify, after we mention that he's an associate member of the ZBA, can we put in parentheses, speaking as a member of the public and not as a member of the board, because he wasn't sitting for the board during this hearing. I just want to make that clear
So
on
can
the
we,
record.
can we just cross off the associate member of the ZBA?
I mean, I don't mind that that's, either way, I'd like to make it clear that he wasn't on the board.
Okay.
You know? But is that clear, Toby? What
Yes.
I'm after? All right, perfect. The last change, I apologize, it's on page 6. It's at the very bottom, and it's where we list, we actually use the word plaintiff. In its place, we were actually not referring to a plaintiff, because there wasn't a plaintiff per se, we were referring to the property owner. So if you could delete the word plaintiff. We were talking about the parties who were going to speak at the beginning of the administrative appeal here.
oh, the property owner,
It was the property owner, rather than plaintiff, on the bottom of page 6, the last line. Okay?
Okay, I move to approve.
Oh, hold on, hold on.
Yes,
hold on,
yes,
I'm
yes,
sorry.
yes.
So the page 5, the paragraph 4, why all those open parentheses? Paragraph 4, last paragraph,
I mean, the one that starts with a
open
parenthesis?
parentheses, yeah. And also on the other, page number 7, from the bottom to the third paragraph,
last
open parentheses, there are many of those.
So you want just a period instead of a,
No, this,
No,
it's
just
not
here.
closing anywhere.
well, the reason I had
Oh, I
them was
see.
that I felt like they kind of detracted from what was being discussed in the paragraph. So I separated them
Oh,
rather than just have it like, but, I mean, if you want me to change them, I can change them, but that's why I separated them.
I'm fine with either.
Okay.
yeah, I'm not sure, I didn't understand. Yeah, okay.
Is it okay?
Yeah.
You want to leave it?
Yeah, that's
All
good.
right, we'll leave it.
All right, so, move that we approve the minutes of December 6th with the changes.
As amended?
As amended.
Is there a second?
Second.
Perfect. All in favor? Aye. All right, minutes are approved. All right, wonderful. So now I think we can move on to the
Can we-
next order of business briefly, which was an informal discussion with our new building inspector in town, Mr. Tiegner. So first of all, thank you for extending the courtesy of offering a brief visit with your newest friends here on the ZBA. Thank you very much for that. I don't know if you had any particular topics or questions or anything that you wanted to cover. I don't have a particular agenda at this time, but I'm happy to hear whatever you've got to say.
I wanted to get an opportunity, if you did have any questions, to ask me into this meeting, but last time we met was kind of a difficult situation, and I didn't get an opportunity to introduce myself as in a open meeting as it is here.
Sure.
I'm available. I tell you right now that I'm very, very interested in making sure that things are done according to our bylaws. I'll do my best to interpret them the best I can, and by all means, I will come to you if I do have a question. But for the most part, I'm hoping that we can work together on that, and that any of the decisions I make will be the correct ones and will be for the betterment of the town. So that's what I'm here for, is to work for the town, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. So.
That's great. Well, thank you for that. First of all, I do appreciate the opportunity to talk briefly. I mean, I just speaking from my own experience, I can say, having worked both on this board and the planning board for a few years, I think there's always, going to be situations that come up where the building inspector or the building department has a certain position on something, and there may be a town board that maybe has a different position on a given subject, whatever it is. I think that's going to happen. I mean, I think that's part of town government. That's why we have systems to sort of deal with that. So I'd be less concerned with making sure that we are always in agreement, because that's not always going to happen necessarily. But I think what you expressed, the willingness to really try to understand the zoning bylaws and apply them in the correct manner each and every time, I think that's music to all of our ears, certainly. So I think that's the key to success.
I think sometimes getting into discussions and disagreements are healthy.
Absolutely.
And they're going to not only point out what is right, but also what is wrong with some of the zoning bylaws, which
We can learn from each other.
we can learn from each other, and I think that's a very good thing. I don't like this, I like this.
Absolutely.
Fair enough.
Agreed. Agreed. Anybody have?
Thank you, first of all. And the thing is, some of them are, as you know, some of them goes through the planning board, some of them are zoning board of appeals. And when it goes to the zoning board of appeals, some of the projects, in the past, we had some issues. So if you have any questions with regard to the special permits, which this board given to the developers, I would ask you to, communicate with us
I think-
before you go for issuing an occupancy permit. Just
Well,
check in with us.
Yeah,
okay?
I think
Everything is
that you
okay.
have seen, I have
Agree,
reached
totally
out
agree,
to
but just
the
time,
board and certain members that if I had a question about any of it, I have done that, and I'll continue to do that.
So, once we receive an occupancy, a temporary occupancy permit, it's so hard to go back and do anything with them.
Yeah, I
So
understand.
that's the reason, before you issue an occupancy permit, I know that it's your job to give an occupancy permit, but please check with us, if there is any
Well, if there's
pending.
a need to go through that, because there are some conditions that were on that original permit,
Yeah.
I will.
Yeah.
But most of the time, occupancy permits are pretty,
Yeah, but
Pretty
yes, that's
transparent.
what we thought too,
Yeah.
but there are incidences,
Well, I'll do my
You know
best to investigate and make sure that there's
just
no...
ask a simple one-line email,
That's a simple email, like you said.
This is this project, special permit issued by the zoning board of appeals. You have any concern, that's all.
Yeah, no
Like
problem.
the recent, one of those project, and they were doing some blasting, and they sent in a notice to all of the boards. If you have any concern, that's it, one single line, that's all I'm asking.
The blasting was more with the chief.
I totally agree, we don't want to get.
Yeah, we don't want to get into that. That's a little tenuous.
I'm just giving throwing an example.
Yeah, I understand. Yep.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other comments?
First of all, thanks, for all the input, but I'm just wondering now, when we, because the first line of defense is the building inspector, and then he sends a report to us, if anybody's gonna put in for a petition and stuff. And it's required for us, anybody puts in a petition, whether it's a variance or whatever, that we have to send a copy of that petition to the planning board, the Board of Health, and the Conservation Commission, because in case there's, anything. And I'm just wondering, should we include the building inspector, sending a copy, when we get our copies back from those boards, should we send them to him, send him a copy so that he can see in case he might have a question or two?
It certainly can't hurt to copy him on
I
an
mean,
email.
would you,
What Raj just mentioned, how do I know if there's any special conditions that you put on?
no, I'm
If
saying
I-
okay, like we have a hearing and the planning board sends us, their interpretation. Would you like a copy to see what the planning board says?
Yes, I would.
Okay.
Normally, the planning board does,
Yeah, I
they
think
do
they
send it to the
usually
building
copy-
inspector.
I-
They do.
Okay, well, I just want to make sure that hopefully the Board of Health and the Conservation Commission will do the same thing, just so that, so that he's well aware of it, so that, there's no issues and stuff. Let's keep this on a handshake and not, fist, pumping fists and stuff, so.
So one other thing, I know that we are just starting, but when you get settled down, when you have a lot of time in hand, we do have in the town, there are many projects, many pending zoning violations. Maybe take a look at it.
I got a list from,
Planning board.
yeah, I do have a list of those items, and yes, when I
Not
do have
immediately.
time, I plan,
I
that's
know
one of my things.
that, I know you are just starting, you have a lot of things to do.
Yeah.
So maybe, you can take a look at that.
I did see that, and there's a few of them that I'm very interested in, so.
Thank you.
Is the permitting chairs, are you still having your meetings on these?
We have been, I don't know that we had one last month, but yeah.
Okay, so what Raj is talking about,
That's
you
the
have
same
a
thing.
copy of that list, so you'll know. Okay, and he goes to, and the building
Yep.
inspector goes to that, okay, so he's up to date, okay.
Yep.
Just wondering, because I haven't heard anything about you guys having any meeting. I don't
Yep.
think it's been a couple of months since you've had a meeting.
Yep.
So, and everybody keeps saying, oh, there's all these these violations, and
Yeah.
that I don't see any meetings, so I don't know if anything's
Yeah,
going
I
on.
think they're being worked through.
Okay.
They're in the system, so to speak. Anything else?
Nope. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
very much.
Thank you.
When in doubt, call us.
Okay, thank you. Right now.
All right, so let's see, time check here, it is 7:18. So we can move down to the public hearing that's scheduled for tonight. So if the petitioners, John and Sally Smolanskis, would like, they can come down front here. Thank you very much.
You could pull another chair.
Yeah, absolutely. Please make yourselves comfortable. All right, so generally, the way we run these things is at the first, first instance, we'll give you an opportunity to present what the proposal is and what the particular request is for this board. If we have any questions, we'll ask them along the way. And then, once that's through, then we'll open it up for any public comment, or if folks have any comments that they'd like to make. And then we'll take it from there. Is that fair?
Yeah, it's great.
Perfect. Yeah, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Before we do that, let's just read the notice into the
The
record.
zoning board of appeals will hold a public hearing at West Boylston Town Office, 140 Worcester Street, West Boylston, Mass, on Thursday, January 17th, 2019, at 7:15, to act on the petition of John and Sally Semenkis for special permit according to Section 3, subsection 3.2 of the zoning bylaws to erect a multi-use building with 2 business units and 2 apartments at 249 West Boylston Street, West Boylston, Mass. Record title stands in the names of John and Sally Semenkis, 14 Oak Circle, Holden, Mass. 01520. Copies of the petition are on file in the office of Town Clerk, 140 Worcester Street. All interested parties are invited to attend the hearing. I hope I said the name correctly. I don't know if I said that name correctly, but
Close.
close enough. All right.
Smolenskis. That's okay.
Perfect.
And just before we start, I'll just introduce myself. My name is John Smolenskis. I'm one of the owners. My wife Sally is sitting over here. And this is Joe Graham. He's one of the engineers, and Robert O'Neill is the other engineer. So I'm going to kind of let them handle the bulk of this.
Sure.
Okay?
Okay.
As John said, I'm Robert O'Neill. Joseph and myself prepared the plan that's before you this evening.
You can sit down.
We believe we had to file with this board because the property was basically existing non-conforming to what the current zoning bylaw is. It was previously used for residential purposes, and what John would like to do is provide multi-use on this lot, both professional office space along with residential. There was some confusion as to the ordinance and the section that we should be filing under. And I know there was a change in personnel from the buildings department, and I believe John filed it under 3.2 based upon the criteria for a buildable lot and setback requirements and so forth. But I think maybe 1.4B would better address the situation because it's an extension of an already existing non-conforming lot.
And just to be clear, the particular nonconformity you're referring to is the lot size?
Correct. It's, if I may.
Yes.
It's a .4 acre parcel with just under 150 feet of frontage. In this business zone, the requirements are a 1 acre parcel with 150 feet of frontage.
Okay.
What we're proposing is basically a 40 by 100-foot building. And as I said, multi-use with associated parking. The building does meet the setback requirements based upon the business zone. However, we're deficient on frontage and area. Joe has done quite a bit of work as far as doing the hydraulic calculations, the drainage. We've properly sited the building on the lot so there are no extension of any nonconformity. And maybe I should turn it over to Joe as to, Joe is the licensed professional engineer. I was the licensed professional land surveyor.
Okay.
Good evening. Like Bob had said, I developed the drainage design as well as the parking layout and building location in order to meet the stormwater regulations, in order to meet the site distance criterias, and obviously to meet the requirements of the building use. I guess we're proposing a 4,000 square foot building. It's 40 by 100 is the buildable area. And with that, we're proposing 19 parking spaces, 2 handicap parking spaces, an enclosed dumpster area, and snow storage along the rear of the property. And all of the property obviously enclosed by privacy fence to provide screening to adjacent or abutting parcels. And we're also, the plans that you have before you are a full site plan. So we do intend on going for site plan approval, and we don't see any changes between here and that site plan. also, there is no existing drainage along West Boylston Street in this area. It's actually owned by Mass Highway, or Mass DOT, in this location. So there's no existing drainage infrastructure. So for that reason, all of our captured runoff is recharged on site with underground infiltration system, and nothing should be, I guess, runoff off-site is the goal.
If I could add one more thing, there's an existing lateral, sewer lateral to the property. We weren't on site, obviously, when it was disconnected from the previous structure. I know John was there at the time, but I think the intent would be to access that. I think they took care in making the cut to the building, and his intent would be to utilize with that lateral that's already in existence, so that he wouldn't have to go out and cut the street. One other thing that's pointed out, and John also is proposing to do some plantings in that area. And again, we had planned to maybe address some of those things with the planning board. I'm sure that we know we're going to have to go before the planning board if in fact we're granted a special permit.
Yep.
I'd be more than happy to answer any questions that the board members may have.
So you mentioned that that there are 2 residential units that are proposed and 2, is that correct? And 2 business units?
Well,
Yes.
actually, I'll let John speak, but I think what we did was we sited the building on the lot, not knowing what type of business that would go in there.
Yep.
I've spoken with John since.
Yep.
He's looking to put at least 2 residentials in, but he's also looking to do more of a professional office.
Okay.
And I'll let John speak for himself.
Okay, yeah, that would be helpful.
Yeah, so when I hired Joe and Bob to do this, we talked about, the maximum size building to be placed on it to accommodate the 2 businesses, the 2 apartments. That doesn't mean that building is going to be that large, but we were trying to basically tell the board or explain to the board that it won't be any larger than this, it probably will be smaller. And the types of businesses we were thinking of were, professionals, either a law office or insurance agency, something along those lines. And of course, the 2 separate apartments upstairs.
Yep. So what you were thinking was a couple of businesses on the first floor, so you walk in, you do your
Yes.
business, and the apartments would be above that on a
Correct,
second
yes.
floor level, within the same building. Okay. Parking spaces there.
19 of them.
All right. Other questions at this time from other folks?
Can you tell us what is this, once you have, this lot was given a variance from the zoning board of appeals?
So on that issue, my understanding is, and I have a copy of that appeal that was from March 6, 1984, was that originally it was a 1-acre parcel. There was the frontage, which I own, and then there was a back piece that backs up to Pierce Street, was 1 acre, but there was 2 buildings on it. And my understanding was that the town approached the owners and said that you can't do that, you can't have that situation. So in order to remedy that, what they did was the town made it 2 separate half-acre parcels with 1 building on each. And that was that decision, but it was the town that made the double nonconformity here with that issue, if that makes sense.
So the variance was issued, my understanding is, I did read through that variance. So my understanding is, it was 1 lot,
Right.
2 habitable dwellings. So and then the owner of the lot, owner of the houses, they came to the planning board. The planning board refused to divide them into 2. So that's why they go to the zoning board of appeals. They had a variance to make it non-conforming as well as make it as a 2 residential lots.
No,
Am I right?
the lot on the front, which I own, always remained in the business zone.
Right.
It's zoned for business,
Yeah.
Yes, correct.
but these were two houses.
At the time, it was split into two, what were used as residential.
Residential. So, that's my understanding.
Yeah.
But it is, when the building was demolished, when was the building demolished?
2014.
Yeah, okay.
So, with that, so the variance is still valid, or the variance for the residential, the variance is for the residential as well as non-conforming, right? So it's expired,
The variance?
yeah.
So when I read the variance, again, this is just my personal opinion on this, I didn't see conditions on the variance that limited the use of that lot. That said, for example, it could only be used as a residence moving forward. What I saw was, it was a variance allowing that larger, approximate 1 acre lot to be split into two pieces, therefore making this lot that we're now talking about at 249 West Boylston Street, which is much smaller than what the zoning bylaws generally allow. But that nonconformity that was introduced by splitting the lot into a smaller size and slightly less frontage that you were talking about,
Yes.
that sort of began after that variance was granted and has continued until the present day. So the way I understand it is that hasn't changed. That's
Correct.
still
Yes,
the same situation it was back in 1984,
yes.
when, shortly after the variance was granted, and I'm sure there was an A&R process or something that went through to actually split the lots.
Yes.
That's my understanding.
Here is the sentence I read. The property contains 2 dwellings on 1 lot. 1 single-family dwelling situated at 249 West Boylston Street and a 2-family dwelling situated at 17 Pierce Street, West Boylston Street. So, my reading is, it's not a business, it was a residential. So the Pierce Street was sold. So now we are talking about the front lot, 249 West Boylston Street. That clearly in this ZBA decision, it says it's a single-family dwelling. So that's not the thing. And by default, it's in a business zoning, right? By
That's right.
default, it's business zoning.
It's in the business zone, yes, correct.
So now we are, do we need a special permit or do we need a variance?
A variance from what, I guess is my question. What are they asking for that doesn't comply with current zoning, I guess? If we were gonna consider a variance, I mean, that's not what he's requesting. I don't know,
The request is not clear, right?
no, I mean, I think what he's asking for is there's an existing lot, granted it's a non-conforming lot, but it's a lot that was legally created in 1984 or thereabouts. And the current nonconformity has existed and hasn't changed in the interim. So they have the variance for the current nonconformity, and the proposal now is to put up a building and parking spaces where they're saying they're agreeing to go through the site plan process, which would mean complying with all current zoning for this proposal. So it seems to me that a special permit under 1.4B that we're talking about is at least a step, one of the steps that you do in fact need to go through in order to, complete this project. Does that, am I making sense at all? Are there questions about that?
Actually, that was exactly my same take. You said it better than I did. I believe because it's an expansion or an alteration of, an alteration of use within non-conforming,
Yeah,
it requires a special permit.
right,
We can't change the square footage, we can't change the frontage.
Right.
But we would like to put in something that's more harmonious to a business use
yeah,
with a couple of residential units. So,
yeah.
yes.
And I know that this is, obviously it's on West Boylston Street, and West Boylston Street has plenty of businesses in this area. Do you have any comments on, how this particular project might fit in to that area, or, traffic-wise, that, I'd say that's one of the busier areas on West Boylston Street, particularly with, say, Dunkin' Donuts right across the street there? Have you given any thought to that at all?
I think we are providing 19 parking spaces.
Yep.
It might be overkill based upon, we try to generate enough parking based upon a square footage area of the building. I don't think you're gonna see 19 cars parked in there based upon an office and 2 residential units. Especially in the evening, all you're gonna have is possibly 4 cars for 2 units. During the day, you're gonna have a couple of office spaces in there, either, like John had mentioned, possibly an insurance company or a law office or an accountant. So I don't think you're gonna see 15 or 16 customers at any given time. So I really think any traffic impacts would be de minimis, especially in that location.
What was your residential? Is that how many bedrooms?
John?
No,
2 bedrooms?
Yeah, for your apartments?
I was leaning towards 1, but no more than 2. Absolutely no more than 2.
Is the parking in front or in back?
It's actually on the side, as you face it. We did go through it as if we were filing a site plan, so we do comply with the location for parking in the business zone. They actually recommend that you put it on the side, if not in the back. So we do meet all the setbacks for
And the
that.
planning board is going to have to approve that.
That's correct.
One question I have is, I'm not an engineer, so I'm showing my own ignorance here outright, but it's, just looking at the proposal, it looks like for that entire lot, more or less, you've got parking lot on one side, building on the other, and not a lot of permeable space left over. So I know you said you talked about the drainage, so I'm just curious sort of how that works here when you don't have a ton of sort of green space left over. Can you just sort of conceptually get into that a little?
We try to increase some of the plantings for a green space in the front of the building.
Yep.
Along West Boylston Street, because there's existing trees there now, and we'd like to replace them. But as far as impervious area specifically goes, we have the drainage structures collect the water and infiltrate it below the parking lot to keep recharge of the groundwater on the site, which is a criteria for mass stormwater.
Right.
So we're actually being able to treat that water and recharge it and maintain it and keep it on site.
And it's not just the surface runoff, sorry, Joe, but it's also the roof leaders for the building as well.
Okay. Okay. You gotta love engineering, I guess.
I think they'll show you what they're talking about. If you go to page 6, it pretty much shows.
As one thing is, I think I might have mentioned it, but quickly before, there is no surface drainage along West Boylston Street.
Right.
There's no catch basins, there's
Yep.
no infrastructure out there. So, we're providing that, with this, so we're confident that we're not impacting anything outside of, our area. Most likely, we'll probably be receiving some runoff because there isn't anything out there. We've accounted for that in our design.
Okay. So, let me see, so I'm looking at, again, so now we're talking about special permit under section 1.4.b. I think that was clear. One thing that might be helpful, certainly for me as the chair, would be to get something from you in writing that specifically says that this application is requesting a special permit under that section, just so for our paperwork, we can have that.
Okay.
If you could provide that for us,
Sure.
that would be very helpful.
Okay.
And honestly, just a one or two sentence thing that says that in fact is the specific permit, special permit that you're requesting here.
Okay.
That would be helpful. So it sounds like, because again, I know that section 3.2 was mentioned in the original application or petition. But it sounds like, so again, we're talking in the business district, and you're specifically mentioning professional offices, right?
Yes.
As the intended business use. I'm just looking through, yeah, right here, under 3.2 F2, offices, business or professional. That is allowed by right in the business district. So I don't think that presents a problem. You wouldn't need, because the reason why I'm bringing that up is.
Do we put it as a condition on that? So only a professional office?
We can certainly talk about that, yes, exactly. So that's a great question. Would you be amenable to, if this board were inclined to grant the special permit that we're talking about, and we certainly haven't made that decision yet, but if we were, would you be amenable to having a condition in the special permit that said the allowed business uses, because of the size of the lot, and because we're concerned about traffic and other things, that the business uses would be limited to offices, business, or professional? Or would you have concerns about that?
I don't see that being a problem, do you? No, I don't.
I think he's amenable.
So, I mean, because you can understand, there are many other business uses that are gonna have much higher traffic, much higher
Sure.
impact in that area, and it's a
Sure.
small lot as it is. So I think that's certainly a concern that comes to mind for me.
Yeah,
is
that's
that,
not a problem.
It's a small lot, so we don't want, a movie theater in there, obviously.
Right.
you know? So any other thoughts, questions from the board?
How would people get to the apartments? You said there's gonna be two businesses on the bottom floor and then two apartments on the top, okay? So if the building is on, if you're looking at if you're standing on West Boylston Street and you're looking directly at the property, the building is gonna be to the left of the property, on the left side of the property. And then there'll be parking in front of it and then parking on the other side. So I'm just curious, is there gonna be like a stairwell in the middle of the building that would go up to the two apartments? Or has that not?
We had thought about that, or,
Because it doesn't look like you have anything on the side or anything on the back. So it would have to be, they'd have to get to the apartments from the front.
right.
Okay.
And, yeah, that was the option that we were looking at. There is a possibility of maybe something on the end with a hallway, leading down to each apartment. Again, that would be the design, in the design phase of the project.
The only thing is that, I went and pulled the 1984 decision, and I read it because I was just curious to see how this property was, divided and all. And it seems to me is that it's always been classified as a business, but there's also always been a residence on both of those properties, especially the one on West Boylston Street. So I think it's the right of use, if that's the correct terminology, because even though it was always a residence, has
Yep.
been on the property, it's also in the business district.
Right.
So basically, by them putting in a business and a residence, an apartment,
Yep.
that really, they kill two birds with one
Right.
stone.
And I think part of what leads to that confusion, you're absolutely right, Dave, is that in the business zone in West Boylston, businesses are allowed and residences are allowed by right. And so essentially, West Boylston business allows mixed use in the business zone. And sort of prior to 2015, before the house was knocked down, it was used as the residential use by right. Now you're asking to use it for both residential uses and business uses. Again, both of those are allowed by right. The only reason we're here, the only reason you're before us is because the lot is not conforming.
Right.
So basically, it was a smart move on your part to ask for, to do both, to do a residence and a business, because it would have been, I think, for me anyways, it would have been a little bit more trickier if you had just said, I just want to do residence, or I just want to do business, but since you're combining both of them, that's the way it has stood, I mean, there's other places on West Boylston Street that are in the same situation. I noticed that the property next to you is for sale now, too, so,
Yes.
so it'd be interesting to see what happens with that, but, and I noticed that you started cutting down some trees on your property, so, been keeping an eye on that, so.
So I'll mention for the board, under section 1.4B, that's the special permit that we're talking about here. The standard for this board granting a special permit is it says, may be granted only in those cases where a finding is made that such a change, extension, or alteration shall not be substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood than the existing use. So I think we've already touched upon that topic a little bit, but could one of you just speak a little bit about how you feel that this use with this building that you're proposing would not be substantially more detrimental to that neighborhood? Obviously, it's a business zone, it's a pretty busy area, but any comments?
I'll jump in. I think it's harmonious with other businesses and residential
Yeah.
dwellings within that area. Like we had stated before, there won't be any parking at night. There'll be professional offices, so it's really enough parking for just the 2 residential units, which is typically 3 or 4 cars. During the day, I don't foresee an additional 15 or 16 cars there at any one time,
Yeah.
back and forth. And I think the traffic flow really is de minimis
Yeah.
for what's proposed.
And to your point, the parking lot that's proposed is essentially proposed to be right next to what is the gas station.
That's correct.
Yes.
That's correct.
Okay.
Given the number of trips typically on a day, gas station is a lot more.
Oh, yeah, substantially more. That, as Joe had pointed out, the gas station is going to have substantially more trips per day
Yeah.
in and out
Oh, yeah.
than this property.
Are you gonna have an elevator in the building for the apartments?
No.
Okay, the only reason I'm asking is because you have 2 handicap spaces, and if somebody wanted to rent the apartment and somebody was handicapped, couldn't come up the stairs, I don't know if that would be an issue, but,
So now I'm just looking at, so there's a list of requirements that we always have to go through for any special permit. So there's nothing particular, about this one. It's just, there's 8 standards that we have to go through. It's in section 6.2 of our zoning bylaws. So it talks about a lot of what we've talked about tonight, ingress and egress to the property, particular reference to automotive and pedestrian safety and convenience, off-street parking, we talked about that, loading areas where required. I haven't looked at this plan that specifically. I don't know if there's a loading.
Not a loading per se, but we do provide a dumpster area,
Okay,
it's in the corner.
perfect.
as well as snow storage,
Goes right
Yeah.
over here in this corner.
privacy fence, and
Privacy fence comes back.
some landscaping as well.
Okay. No, proposed use will not create any danger of pollution to public or private water facilities. Residential use and professional use, I wouldn't imagine that's gonna be an issue. Methods of drainage and groundwater from the site shall not have an adverse effect. We talked about that. Presumably, you'll be hooking up to the town sewer system as well, so we don't need to worry about,
There's an existing lateral on site.
There's already, there's a hookup there already in front of the property, isn't there?
There is, and that was disconnected when we took the building down, as well as the...
And there's a water,
There's water there, and there's also gas on site.
okay.
okay. Next, I'll just run through these very quickly. No excessive noise, vibration, glare, dust, smoke, heat, or odor shall be observable. I don't imagine that's gonna be a problem with any of these uses. Satisfactory arrangement of refuse disposal. I know one of the ones that, having been on the planning board, I know is an issue with respect to refuse disposal is, and you're talking about having a dumpster here, is I think Generally, chain link fences around those are not allowed. It needs to be some other type of a fence, some more
Like a
decorative.
vinyl or something.
A solid board fence,
Yeah, so
correct?
just-
Yes.
So keep that in mind. You've said you're planning to meet all of the required setbacks for
Yes.
for this lot on all four sides of the property?
That's correct.
And obviously, that's something that the planning board also will be keen to working through to make sure that there's compliance with all of that. And the use shall be in general compatibility and harmony with adjacent properties and other properties in the district. I think we covered that before. Those are, in a nutshell, sort of, I think, what this board generally focuses on for special permits in general. At this time, are there other comments, questions from members of the board?
I want to hear from the public first.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, anything else from you before we open it up for public comment?
No, thank you.
Okay,
So the only, concern I have is, I don't want that apartment to be a, starting with 1 bedroom to 2 bedroom
Yeah,
to
I
3
would-
bedroom to.
I agree with
would-
that.
I would specify when it comes to the condition.
Yeah,
yeah.
what it's gonna be.
What's going to be.
So you said no more than 2 bedrooms per unit?
Yes.
That could potentially be another condition?
Yes.
in the
That's fine.
special
So
permit?
the reason being, if we have no conditions.
Yep.
So when you leave this board, when you go to the planning board, you will say, I need 3 bedrooms.
Right.
So
No,
then that creates an issue with the parking,
Right.
traffic, and our schools.
And I agree with Raj, I think there's gotta be something in there that
So
says what you're
And
gonna.
that's fine. Like I said, we were looking more towards the 1, but,
If you
I want to
stay
leave it
with
a little
1
bit open to 2, but absolutely no more than
if
2.
you stay with 1, that'll be great.
Mhm.
Because, considering the next, I don't know who wants to be there. So we have a heavy traffic from the Dunkin' Donuts.
Mhm.
And next to a gas station,
Right.
it's a 24-hour, car wash, gas station. That's
Sure.
what my thought goes.
Okay.
Fair enough. Fair enough. All right, so at this time, we'll open it up for public comment. If there are any public comments, first off, you're more than happy to hear any and all comments that we have here tonight. Just before you do speak, if you have something to say, please state your name and your address clearly for the record, so we can write that down and keep that memorialized in the minutes for this meeting. Exactly. So with that said, are there any comments from the public on this proposal? Anyone? Either positive or negative, or somewhere in the middle? All of them we take.
Milo Howard at 17 Pierce Street.
17
Pierce.
Pierce Street, okay,
We have no issues with this at all.
okay.
We'd like to see John develop it. As long as it meets all the criteria, we
Yep.
have no problem.
Okay, well, thank you for that. Appreciate it. Any other comments from the public? Nothing else? Okay.
Motion to close the public hearing.
Well, actually, before we do that, I just want to mention the feedback we received from the 3 boards. So we did get a letter from the planning board, which I think was shared with you, hopefully.
Yes,
On
Toby
this
had sent that over to me. I
proposal?
did
Perfect.
review it.
And we also did get feedback both from the Conservation Commission and also the Board of Health. Board of Health acknowledged that there's a sewer hookup, and so I think if you're going through there, then I think all is well and good. I think that's what it said essentially, right? And Conservation Commission, does anybody remember if there were
The
any
chairman's right there.
concerns?
The chairman's here.
Ah,
Mr. Chase. Let him speak on that.
Just in case there were questions.
I think you didn't write the report, that's why you are here.
any comments from your perspective?
No, actually, I like the project. From our point of view, they had contacted me earlier, and I said my concerns would be sheet flow going onto the highway,
Yep.
because MassDOT's gonna have a problem with that instantly. Lumens from the lights, whatever you have for lighting. I needed to have it recharged, because there was no drainage on there.
Mhm.
So he addressed the snow storage, the recharge, and the dumpster.
Yep.
So,
And the lumens, I know, again, that's something that the planning board definitely looks at in the site plan process.
no, I thought it was a very well done plan.
What do you think
Mr.
of the parking, the traffic?
Based on what he's gonna do with it, I don't think he's gonna have any problem at all with it. I mean, if it's an accountant, what if he got one or two
Considering
cars
other-
coming in and out?
Considering, down the road, other businesses coming, Alfarna.
Well, really, the gas station and Dunkin' Donuts are your major problems right there.
Yeah.
And you get the intersection right there, so you got the lights, that kinda controls it.
Yeah.
It's not like the other one we have down further on down the road, down by Gerardo's and that.
This is an issue in a Route 12, I don't want to go off,
Well, I had sent a letter, and from my opinion, again, not as conservation and that, but from a resident, taxpayer, if you will, I think it's the best use of the land. Versus just having a vacant lot and doing nothing.
agree, but, my concern is the traffic. So starting from Franklin Street, we have an alcohol store next, and then post office plaza, and then there is a new businesses proposed on that area. After that Walmart, on and on, the entire,
Well, he's got the parking there, he could
I
turn
know,
around
this is-
inside, he's got a great curb cut, it's got a good angle. So, I mean, I think he's done everything he can do with it.
If I may, we've also addressed the lumens. We provided one of the sheets that addressed.
Okay, great.
The
Photometric.
Yeah, it's photometric for the flow of the light. So
Okay.
we've addressed that, so we're not going out on any of the butters, especially the residential butters to the rear of us.
Okay. So just something else that I think this board would likely consider is, so again, we talked about the site plan review process, right? And we talked about, there's a requirement that if we're gonna grant the special permit, that you've provided evidence that you're gonna be complying with zoning. It sounds like you're well on your way towards doing that. And you also mentioned that this particular drawing sort of depicts the largest possible building, and that it may in fact be smaller because of, I don't know, maybe a drainage issue or something comes up, or for whatever reason, something comes up in site plan where you have to amend this to deal with something that comes up. So I just want to make sure that we're not limiting whatever happens in a way that would require you to come back before us.
Okay.
So you mentioned that I think the building was it 4,000 or 4,500?
4,000 for the footprint.
4,000 square feet, and that would be max.
Right.
Actually, yeah, max for footprint, but if you're looking at cubic foot, if there's if the two apartments are above it, it'd be the 4,000 for the footprint.
Times two.
Well,
You're
it might not be the whole, he doesn't really have a design yet, but it
Okay.
might not be the whole
Okay,
additional, yeah.
but at least, like you're saying, the footprint would
The
be
footprint, yes.
40 by 100.
Correct. And that's the maximum footprint.
Okay.
But
I think we should specify that also,
Yeah.
so.
And that's obvious, like we said, that's pending site plan review, you have to go through that. If there's things that need to change, then there's things that need to change.
So, but when we say special permit, once we issue the special permit, I don't want them to go back and change this plan entirely different.
Yeah,
Make it a gigantic building over there.
right,
So I'm saying is, in this, they are talking about 40 by 100.
Yes.
so we could put that
I
in.
hope, you will stay with that same amount, same size.
Could say no more than
No more than.
40 by 100
Right.
foot
Sure.
building.
The lesser would be fine, but, yeah,
Yeah,
so.
There's also a height requirement too. The building can only be so tall.
that's correct.
So that's another thing, that would be part of the site plan review.
Exactly.
Planning board.
Exactly.
I think it's about 37 feet? I think it's
It's
37 feet.
30-something, yeah, I can't remember exactly.
I believe it's 38, just under. Close.
Okay.
All right.
I don't like the idea of a residential property or apartments above the business. I'd like to see it all business.
But he has the right to do that.
To make it business.
And
Residential in the
because,
business
because,
district.
because it is in the business zone, and there was always a residence on that property.
Okay, so the business sounds better to me than residential up there on West Boylston Street.
Yeah. But that's actually an interesting issue, Charlie, that you raised, because I think in the planning board letter, they mentioned that mixed use is, I think,
Allowed.
in the town master
it's
plan,
allowed.
or, what is it, not the master plan?
By default, in a business zone
Housing
areas,
production plan or
Housing
something.
production plan, it's allowed.
So it's allowed, and there's even evidence that it's encouraged in town.
Do you already have a curb cut?
Yes.
No, when I'm looking at your property, I don't really see anything, so I just,
I'm sorry. They'll probably have to be widened out to 18 feet,
because you have here 24 feet.
or 24, excuse me.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, like I said, when you look at the property, it's hard, because I know that DOT is very, very tough on those things, so I mean, just, you might want to keep that in mind. And as far as the traffic.
They
I
already
just-
issued that permit.
Oh, okay, fine.
Yeah, yeah.
As far as the
So
traffic.
they were notified.
Yeah.
And they already issued that.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
good, good. Then you're all set. As far as the traffic, I don't see a problem. For the simple fact is what's right next door to you. There's like 4 businesses, and I really hardly ever see any more than maybe 3 or 4 cars in that place. I mean, I understand it's on market
No,
right now.
It's not that this traffic to this place, traffic in that area I'm talking.
Well, I understand that.
So Dunkin' Donut is the heavy traffic.
Right.
Before Gourmet Donut,
Yeah.
Dunkin' Donut, and then the gas station. So that's the traffic. In addition to this, based on the business, there may be an additional traffic. That's what I'm referring. It's not to this business, in general.
I think no matter where you build on Route 12, you're gonna have traffic, so, I mean, that's plain and simple. I mean, if
It is.
we could avoid the traffic, then fine, but I just don't see an issue with that, but that's just my opinion.
All right, are there any other questions from the board before we
So
consider?
are they going to revise that application?
I'm sorry, say that again?
Are they going to revise this application?
So, yeah, so let's talk about that.
You're gonna amend it.
Yeah, so
Amend it.
what would this board like to, because we talked about getting something in writing that specifies 124B. Would folks
Yeah,
like a statement? Would folks like an amended version of the petition?
I would like to get that revised or amended application, because
Okay.
it's going to be a record, it's going
Yep,
to stay
right.
here.
Yes,
So if they give it in writing, it will be in some place.
Yep.
And
so
So amend it to
does
that
that
one.
make sense? Fill out the same petition, but just this time specifically mention section 1.4B as the relief for the special permit that's being requested.
And if it's helpful, we can add
can
that
add
to as a
notes.
note to the set of plans. Yeah.
That would be great.
Okay.
That would be great. And then, all right.
And then the others, if we approve this, then the other conditions we can put as far as the business.
Yep.
And the
So,
parking.
yeah, so let me run past those very quickly. So sort of the conditions that we talked about that I've kept track of, correct me if I've forgotten one or added one, but, so no more than 2 bedrooms per residential unit, so that would be a total of 4 bedrooms potentially in the building at most. The use was going to be potentially limited to offices, business, or professional. That's under section 3.2 F2, but you don't need a special permit for that, that's allowed by right in the business zone.
Okay.
But nonetheless, that would be a limitation on the special permit, because we don't want the use to expand too much, given the small lot size.
But we should have that as a condition, right?
Yes,
Okay.
exactly.
All right.
And then the other condition we talked about was the building itself would be no more than 40 feet by 100 feet.
Correct.
Those were the 3 conditions that we talked about. Is there anything else that I forgot? Okay. Let me just make a note of that.
Motion to close the public hearing?
second,
Is there a second? Okay, any discussion? All right.
I think it seems to be, good use of that lot.
Yeah.
But my only concern is it's a very small lot.
Yeah,
But,
Yeah.
considering the business, what business it's going in,
right,
what type of business.
right.
I think,
And
should
it
be
is-
good use of that.
Right, and it is a business district.
I wish they would have not cut the tree before coming to the board. That's the only thing,
Yeah.
Just, if they would have left the tree and then come in here and then get a permit, go cut the trees.
All right, so I've heard a first and a second motion to close the public hearing. All in favor to close the public hearing? Aye. Okay, so the public hearing is closed. If there's any more deliberation from the board, we can have that now.
We need a simple majority.
For this one, we need 4 out of 5.
Right.
For a special
Supermajority.
permit, supermajority. So
I'm just
4
curious, is this, okay, now, I know, Mrs. Smolinski, you talked about that this 4,000 square foot building would be the max. It may be a little bit smaller. So I'm just curious, are you going to submit this plan as is
Yeah.
to the planning board, or are you going to redo the, are you thinking about making this building smaller, or are you just gonna wait for the planning board to discuss that with them?
Actually, we would probably wait for comments from the planning
Okay,
board,
all right,
but
okay.
he's also going to need to provide a rendering of that building to the board
Right,
as well.
right, okay, all right. And you're okay with all the conditions that we're gonna set forward? Okay, all right, that's fine.
All right.
Do you think we should refer this plan?
Yeah, we'll certainly, we
on that,
can mention it.
decision?
Yeah, absolutely, yes. And one thing, so, when we vote, again, one thing I would ask, so we did talk about that amended petition.
Yes.
Referencing 14B. If you could get that to us as soon as possible, I mean, it doesn't have to be tomorrow, but say by early next week at the latest.
Actually, tonight before you leave.
That would be,
Sure.
perfect.
Okay.
Absolutely. Email is fine, or dropping it off is fine too, I think.
Okay.
Either way works.
You need a motion?
Was there any other discussion? Any other comments? We feel everybody's come to a decision, we're ready to vote?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, make a motion?
No, we need to change those in the motion. We need to change this section 1.4.
Yes, 1.4, point B.
Okay, so I'll make a motion that we approve the special permit for 249 West Boylston Street under section 1.4.b with the conditions that we specifically addressed, and also that the petitioner redo the application to signify that it's going to be 1.4B instead of the 3.32. That's the motion.
Okay, so there's the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second, and this motion is to approve the special permit request under 1.4B. 4 votes are required for the special permit to be granted, 4 out of 5. No other comment? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, say no. Okay, it's 5-0, Toby. The special permit to be granted. Please get us that amended petition as soon as possible. It would be very helpful.
And then you know that once, we have 14 days to write the decision, and then it goes to an appeal for 21 days. So it's about 35, total of 35 days. But I believe that you could probably still talk to the planning board about making the arrangements, but they probably won't do anything until they get our, the decision and the appeal. There's been no appeal, so.
Thank you.
Good luck, and, I think, like I said, I think this is a great opportunity for the town. It's a good thing for the land, other than just sitting there looking bare naked. There's gonna be something there that's gonna make the town more attractive and maybe bring in more businesses to the town. So good luck, Mr. Smolinski.
Thank you. Good luck. Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
I took them all on my office.
Oh, we need the vote sheet. Vote sheet.
Do you,
All right, so, yeah, I'm not gonna say much.
No, I don't even want to talk about it.
that's good though.
They wanted to vote yes.
Toby's got the vote sheet. This is your on 6. Okay, so, just so that you know, that's where we're.
Toby, is there anything, paperwork that you need signed?
Thank you very much. Good job, guys. Good job.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so now,
I think it's great. My brother thinks it's great too, but he doesn't.
Yeah, but he's,
He told me that.
Executive session?
Yeah, he was.
so you could if you don't have to. So it's up to you.
All right, so I'll tell you what.
We're gonna talk about the closed session.
I was actually off today, so maybe some. Yeah, I actually.
even though the land is small, it's huge, better than just sitting here. That's all we need.
Yeah, no permits, we got nothing.
We have it's a small town, but we have a big house. So, we want to bring businesses in, and if they look around and they see, okay, well, the PA is, pretty decent in certain things. Right, exactly.
And there's no lights on it.
No problem. No, because we have to go right to executive session.
We've got to,
Whatever you want to do, you're the chair.
yes. So,
Could we just ask everybody to take everything outside into the hallway, please? So, because we still have the meeting going on. Thank you. Oh, they probably went to the ladies' room.
We'll take up the rear.
Toby, is this a new one?
Yeah, that's the most up to date.
Thank you. See you, thank you.
You're welcome. Good evening. Where's
so what
Roger?
I'd like to do in open session is the last thing, have someone make a motion, have a second to enter into executive session.
I'm moving to,
Then we'll do roll call, then I'll make the motion the chair has to make, and then we'll go into executive session.
can I just,
Oh, so what are we doing anything else from the agenda?
That's it.
No.
Unless there's anything
We're
that you
done,
want to.
okay.
Yes.
just wait till everybody can start.
Oh, that fee schedule,
Yeah, we're
that
gonna
thing that
hold off
Vinnie
on that.
sent.
We're gonna hold off on that.
We're gonna put that to the next one.
Hold off, okay.
I'll put that to the next meeting. Okay.
Well, we'll figure that out in executive session.
Okay. All right, I was just trying to.
Oh, I hear you.
Raj, Charlie didn't leave, did he?
No, his bathroom.
Oh, okay, good. All right.
Well, so before we move into executive session, like I said, I do want to make the motion in open session, just so it's on the record and we're doing it the right way.
Yep.
Is there anything else that folks want to discuss before? we-
Yeah, I just wanted to know, first of all, the thing about the fees, I'd like to push that off till the next meeting.
Yep, done.
Okay, fine.
Done.
On the financial report, okay, there's still money left over from the 40B project.
Yes.
Okay? And I know that once everything is done, this, whatever's left over goes back to
Yes.
the developer, okay? What I'm not sure of, and what I'd like for the board to check on, is at what time does this, do we make a decision to send this money back? Do we have to wait until the cost certification is done to find out if he went over the 20% or not? I mean, does everything have to be finalized before we do this? So I don't,
Yeah, that's my understanding.
Okay.
And then one step of that would be, he would come to us and request that money back.
well, I just want to make sure that we're not going to give it back to him sooner than...
That's not gonna happen.
Okay. all
That's
right,
not gonna
All right,
happen.
that's all I needed to know. Also, too, is, Toby, how are we doing on your expense?
Good.
Okay. We have enough money to last us through this fiscal year,
It would be, well, till June,
till June?
yeah, so we're doing good.
Petitions too along the way.
Hope so.
But I
If
think-
not, then something that we may want to discuss is, would we have to go to the finance committee?
Yeah, we'll cross that bridge if and when we have to. All right, so,
I move that we move into executive session.
for,
We need to read it.
Okay, executive session pursuant to Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, Part 3, to discuss strategy with respect to litigation in the matter of David Brossi versus ZBA, Worcester Superior Civil Court, Civil Action Number 1785, Charlie Victor 0046, and the chair declares that having this discussion in open session will have a detrimental effect on the town's litigating position.
is there a second?
Second.
So,
Roll call.
So that's the motion. We need to take a roll call. A roll call, yes vote would be to enter into executive session. Raj?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Yes for me.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay, so that's 5-0, roll call vote to enter into executive session. So let me just make this motion by the chair. I move to enter into executive session under the provisions of Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, Part 3, to discuss strategy with respect to litigation in the matter of David Brossi v. ZBA, Worcester Superior Court, Civil Action Number 1785, CV 00416, as having this discussion in open session will have a detrimental effect on the town's litigating position. And with that, we will move into executive session.
We are not coming back.
And we are not coming back into open session. Thank you.